Welcome back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. It is a Thursday, June the 13th, 2024. It is T Watts and TR, and as typically the case, we're going to go through a myriad of topics. We're going to culminate this show with the Bama Online Roundtable Mailbag, staple now of the YouTube home for BOL, has been for quite some time, whether it's podcast format or this right here. And of course, right there next to me, the site publisher for BamaOnline.com, the one, the only, and now golf enthusiast we add to that title, Mr. Tim Watts, because Tim's beating me up. I mean, he's busting me up. Where's the U.S. Open? What channel? All these things now. Tim, you've really come along as a connoisseur of the sport.
I just think this is a testament to how much I love our BOL family that I break free of the U.S. Open at 9 a.m. Central Time to do this.
I get a text from Tim that says, let's hurry up and do this show so I can get back to the golf. What?
Well, my son's my oldest son's a big golf. All my kids are getting into golf. Has nothing to do with me. I deterred it. I spanked them. I grounded them. I did tennis. We stop at tennis around here. So he texted me it was on, and then I'm like, Travis, you got one job, Travis. You got two jobs. And tell me when because I never even saw a preview.
Yeah, you thought it was just on the stream right now, I think, on Peacock, but it's actually on. It's kind of like the NCAA tournaments become, right? You got to figure out where the hell it's at. And right now on the cable, it's on USA Network.
But when you go to Peacock, you also have to pick. You have like 8 options to choose from. I get groups. I got a certain hole I can just watch. So I'm trying to figure that out. What's up, Tex Tider?
Yeah, everybody checking in here. We appreciate that.
I'm trying to figure everything out, but I'm gonna give it a glance today. But see, I don't do commercials.
Yeah,
I've never done commercials. I certainly do them now. And all the sports I watch, I'm on mute. I think some people think I'm kidding. I literally on mute. I watch TNT's halftime. Some people I do like, but I watch it on mute just because I know it's going to irritate me. So I miss a lot of them saying the U.S. Open's coming up.
Yeah, we're here. We got Tex Tider here in the show chat checking in. Says, howdy, boys. Last appearance for the BOL cap on YouTube. What's up with that, Tex? He says he's back to Captain Tex with the sailing avatar after his vacation next week. I thought Tex was always on vacay. Maybe I got that mixed up, but
we appreciate you jumping right in, Tex. You're
JT83 jumping in here. Bob Rutherford, our pal, Uncle Bob. He's Uncle Bob.
Bob's always here. Thank you.
Jackson Hunter, Roll Tide, he says, from Bedford, Indiana. Love the show and the BOL team. Not as much as we love you, Jackson.
Thank you, Jackson. I lived in Indiana for 9 months.
You did?
Yeah, right outside of Indianapolis. I was roofing. I'll never forget. They had snowflakes the size of $50.
Oh,
I had a guy was working with me, and he hit his foot with a tear-off shovel, and I don't think he realized it.
Ooh.
And I've been from Alabama my whole life. That cold is a different level cold. And I told my buddy who was from Alabama with me, I said, I can't do this. This is the start of winter.
I think I'd rather do that job in the summer heat in the South than try to do that in the snow and cold.
Well, roofing's tricky because in the South we have these steeple roofs that are 12, you can fall off and die. In Indianapolis, they were as flat as they could get. I've never quite understood it. I'm sure there's a reason. An engineer, somebody could tell me, with all the snow they get, why they're flatter to hold them than the steep angle to fall off. But
yeah, we've got Luke before Bama checking in here too. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Let's see here. We've got Steve Murray 19. I recently subscribed to the message board, he said, and he loves the material. We certainly appreciate that. Uncle RV checking in. Are there any current pro golfers that played at Alabama? Well, I mean, yeah, Justin Thomas. He's on the broadcast right now, I think, for the U.S. Open. It looked like he was struggling a little bit earlier. JT was. Davis Riley recently won a PGA Tour event. The Hattiesburg, Mississippi native, star for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Boy, you've got probably 4 or 5 right now. At least 3 to 5 that make that list. Scott Singleton checking in. Keith Griner checking in. Here comes Jermaine Oh wow. How about Jermaine Mims choosing
Mm,
violence? I mean, we're not 5 minutes into the show, and Jermaine here
he's
with
got
some.
that US Open, first day of the US Open energy going.
Oof,
Hey, I will
oof.
tell you this. I know people see Jeff Lee is fun. He's the guy you want to be at a party with. I've told people this.
See, you're breaking kayfabe now because the
I just
subscribers, Tim, what they want to believe is
now I'm about to say Jeff on a message board
that
is a
it's like
handful. Jeff
yeah,
on a
like
no,
go
Jeff
ahead.
on a message board is a handful, but in person, I think everybody we get along great. Message boards, which is a different animal for all of us. I mean,
Yeah, it's like
I've made posts that were as harmless as they could get, and had people looked up and there's just a huge thread just tearing me apart. That's just kind of nature of it. But I do appreciate the support, Jermaine.
see, I mean, you saying that it's like wrestling fans finding out that, like The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve shared cars to travel from one gig to the next.
Well, with me and Jeffrey on the message board, we're definitely headlock and power drive and all that. But off of it backstage, it's not that bad. But I get it. Jeff's all of our,
Well,
we have so many guys in this network at different sites that are fun. I mean, they're fun to read. That's why
yeah.
our fans read them. I mean, they're fun. Jeff's one that'll keep you entertained. Shoot, Jeff's over there in a steel cage death match because he said Nate Oates was a good coach.
Oh, geez.
Jeff Jeff almost got banned from his own website. So,
Jerome
but
from
thank you.
Birmingham checking in.
Hello, Jerome. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Always enjoy the
I
show.
appreciate all y'all. Yeah, we appreciate all y'all jumping in so early. Montreal,
How about that? Now, I haven't been to Canada,
saying I want to
and
go.
but Montreal is where I want to go because I want to get that culture in Montreal. I get the sense Toronto's great. Toronto looks awesome, but Toronto almost feels Americanized, and Vancouver kind of the same thing. Those are all places I want to hit. But I want some. I feel like Montreal is the real place. If you want to
That's right
visit
across
Canada.
the. I don't think that's far from Quebec City.
Uh
So
huh.
if you tie that
Uh huh.
into a Christmas trip, you would double up. But
Yeah,
thanks
and
everybody
what
for
I hope
showing up early.
I hope our viewers didn't double up on their bets on the Dallas Mavericks after we both picked the Mavs to beat the Boston Celtics in
I
the
thought
NBA
I wanted
Finals.
7 games because I don't want the NBA to end. I like sports. I do this in the World Series. I do this in everything. I don't want it to end, but the Celtics, Drew Holiday's one of my favorite players. He's a former Pelican. He's such a glue guy. He's never going to get the attention he didn't with the Bucks. But it's not a coincidence. The Bucks got a championship the first time since, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think he was still Lou Alcindor when he got it maybe.
Hmm.
That's how
Hmm.
long it's been, and then now Boston's getting their first one in a long time, though. But they great defense. They work hard. They got a lot of role players. I'd
Who
hope
gets
they go
more of the
7.
heat for this 3-0 deficit where the Mavs are concerned, Tim? Is it Luca or is it Kyrie?
Kyrie
Or
was
both?
great. They really could have used that in the first 2 games. He was great. I think Luka, he kind of came unplugged last night. If you watch
Yeah.
the game, I mean, he's screaming and yelling. And look, you gotta let those guys have their bad plays, just like an umpire. You can't gripe about every play you disagree with, and then they just get it. They're human. They're going to get a chip on their shoulder. And when they get that chip on their shoulder, the plays are going to be tougher and tougher. Some of those were tough plays. They had a legal screen I didn't agree with. He was set. I thought it was Dallas was set on that. Lucas' 6th foul was a little bit questionable. I think they probably got it right, but it might not have been called that late. But you can't
Yeah.
just keep. Yeah, he just wanted it too bad. I think just the pressure. He's always had issues with the referees. Some
Yeah,
maturing that needs to go there.
it's tough too because you just don't know when you're going to get back to this spot, especially
Yeah,
coming out of the West,
yeah. They gotta add a guy. I think
Yeah.
everybody in the West basically is at the stage. The Pelicans are at that stage, the Lakers, everybody needs to add a guy, except Denver. They just gotta keep their guys for the most part.
And for the Celtics to get that win without Porzingis too,
Yeah,
you know.
that
Oof.
just yeah, and boy, he's good. I mean, we knew he was good, but he's kind of been a punchline. We
Yeah.
had Stephen A. Smith went off when the Knicks drafted him,
Yeah.
kind of been traded around and moved around, but again, you add him to that team last night. Dallas is a different team, but then again, he hadn't been very healthy.
Tim, do you have a statement on the Atlanta Braves at this point before we get into the
They
strictly
stink.
Alabama stuff?
They stink. It's bad. I mean, I don't think it's over, but it's like the other, Michael Harris starts off with a leadoff triple and you don't come close to scoring him.
Hmm.
Weak ground ball to third, a strikeout, and a pop up to a second baseman or the right side of the infield. I mean, there was no prayer. I mean, at that stage, you're just hoping for a pass ball. The last game, they're down 2-0 the whole game, looked terrible. Olsen hits a monster shot, 2-2. Bottom of the inning, they give up two over in the top
Hmm.
of the ninth. So a lot of talent, just not clicking. That ball, now the ball seems dead to me, and we'll get away from baseball right after this. Except for New York, Aaron Judge and Stanton are hitting some. They are hitting some. They're hitting some 1 hour flights. They are
Those
hitting
dudes
some.
are they're built a little different too, both
They are
those
hitting.
guys.
Sean Murphy hit one the other night, and I saw some stat on Twitter. His home run would have been a home run in 29 out of 30 ballparks. I think it said 29 out of 30, and the Orioles hit one in the bottom half of the inning, and they said that would have been a homer in 20 of 30. So the Braves are just having they both 3-run homers. Braves are just also,
Hmm. Hmm.
might be time for a new manager.
You know what it isn't time for, Tim? It's not time for a new defensive line coach at the University of Alabama because even with the change from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer, Alabama able to maintain the services, sustain the services of Freddie Roach, and it is defensive line week. At BamaOnLine.com, Charlie Potter, our outstanding senior team writer, headlining that coverage this week for us. And I wanted to ask you about some defensive linemen in general, the position in general. And I figured the best way to do that, I love it. I love it, Tim, the over unders. So
Yeah,
when
you
we
do
look
love
at
the
the
over
deep,
unders.
I love them. The defensive line positions a year ago for Alabama, you had 19 total tackles for loss. Of that total, 11 and a half came from Justin Aboigbe and a big step forward season for him. You look at Kane Womack and where he's coming from, South Alabama. The Jaguars a year ago had 29 tackles for loss from the defensive line positions. That coming in one fewer game than Alabama played. That was 13 games for South Al. Kind of interesting, too, how you look at the Wolf position in this defense for Alabama. It's kind of like the Jack. So it's still, in my opinion, going to be considered primarily a linebacker spot. But you add the bandit defensive end spot. Now you have the defensive tackles. So with Justin Aboig moving on and all those tackles for loss, um, if I were to set the tackles for loss for Alabama at even a higher number for the defensive linemen than what they amassed a year ago, let's say we went 19 and a half and said over Alabama defensive linemen are going to get into the 20s for TFLs because you got to take into account the approach and how they go about playing their position is probably going to be different. It looks like it's going to be different than what we saw under Nick Saban. What do you think? Because Aboigbe was such a big piece, but you do bring back Tim Smith. You do bring back Tim Keenan and Damon Payne and James Smith, Jaheim Otis, who you didn't see in the spring. You're hoping is good to go and should be good to go this fall. Jamarian Latham, could he be a Justin Aboigbe type in 2024? A lot to take into account here, Tim, when you look at those numbers and these guys.
Yeah, you look. I think you're going to have those guys, those DBs coming off the edge too, or Quay Russo, or those safeties coming up. I would go over because I think you're looking at a town. I thought the defensive line was good last year. I thought they had good talent. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't a lot of huge, big names and all. But you got a seasoned James Smith. You got LT Overton, who I think's got a chance, and you got Keon Keeley, just some guys there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're the impact guys or not, I know they're good enough to push the guys ahead of them. So if they're good enough to keep them off the field, you got guys ahead of them. That's going to end up being a pretty good defensive line. Still got high hopes for Overton and Smith and Keeley. All three were highly recruited guys, highly sought after with a lot of talent, and they seem to have the right mindset. I know Keon Keeley was, pretty happy. We talked to people close to him. He's really happy to go back to what he considered his natural position. Overton seems like he got a new lease on life. He just feels like he's really comfortable. He's clicked with Roach. This is a pretty loaded room. It's pretty much, it's pretty deep room. I think when Kane Womack got here, talking to people near the program, he was pretty impressed with how deep it was. I mean, when you're looking at their recruiting needs, they're not going after a ton of defensive linemen because they're expecting a lot of these guys back um, to begin with. So Roach did a really good job with the room, which is odd because we heard from so many people he wasn't doing a good job. So that's I haven't heard from him lately, but it feels like he did a pretty good job. And I tell you what, he did a good job of was evaluating what the team needed and going after guys that maybe other teams weren't pushing for as hard and getting some of those guys. I mean, you look down at the second or third tier guys, Jordan Renard, Edric Hill, Hunter Osborne, Jermaine Beeman. We've heard good things about all those guys. They're just young and behind some very talented people.
They are, as you said, there are numbers, even with some of the attrition from a year ago, with a Boygby moving on, with some transfer portal entrance. Latham is a guy that's been around now. Tim Smith's been around. Tim Keenan. You bring in Overton. Damon Payne has played a good bit of football. James Smith showed some promise a year ago. Didn't even see Otis in the spring, and he's back. So, big hopes for Jordan Renaud. I think Edric Hill still has the potential to be a big impactor here. I don't know if there's going to be 11 and a half tackle for loss guy in this group, but I feel confident that there's at least 3 or so that can be 5 or 6 plus, which gets you right to 20 right out the gate with some of these guys that you bring back and you bring in with Overton and Tim Smith a year ago, just 2 tackles for loss. I gotta think he gets more into that 6, 7, 8 range, especially in a big year for him in terms of his professional football future. Same for Latham as a veteran. Same for Keenan. Damon Payne and Otis a year ago, just 1 tackle for loss. So you start thinking about these guys sort of collectively, Tim, and I don't think it's as much of a leap to think that that production is going to go up in terms of tackles for loss.
No, I think your talent level's up. I think you've got a more aggressive defensive coach that wants to get in there, not so much hold them up and let the linebackers run.
Yep.
I think these guys are going to get to chase. I think they're going to get to chase the quarterback a good bit. And also the running backs. I mean, those guys, it's going to be hard to go up the middle against Alabama. So the more you push people running wide, the more likely you are to get a tackle for loss, with the guys. And that's where I think that comes in with the safeties who've leaked up. The Quay Russaw types on the outside. I think they're going to feast because when you jam that middle, and that's what the old Alabama defenses did. Like a lot of Leonard Fournette, going back to that defense, which I just so happened to be watching last night, that defensive performance was pushing him out of that between the tackles. And that was, that was a lot of tackle for loss. So I think this defense is going to be aggressive.
Yeah, maybe not as much two gapping and more getting up the field and trying to make plays for those guys up front. Again, USA with 29 tackles for loss from their defensive linemen. That was 10 more than Alabama had from that spot a year ago in 1 more game played than the Jags. You think about sacks, and Justin Aboigbe a year ago, 7 sacks to lead the defensive line. James Smith had 2. Tim Smith had 2. You had Latham with 1.5. 12 total sacks for the defensive line. I'll go 12 and a half, go a half more than a year ago, even with a Boygby and those 7 sacks. Moving on, I'm going to go a little bit higher because I think this front 7 has a chance to be even better against the run than it was a year ago. And I think the tackle for loss numbers potentially going up for the front could help as far as opportunities to sack quarterbacks, maybe more not just third and obvious passing situations, but third and 13, 14 type of situations for this defense. So if I set it at 12 and a half after 12 a year ago, which way would you go with that for these guys in terms of sacks?
I mean, it's June. I'm going over. This is June's when hope springs eternal. I think I like the aggression that we've heard people talk about, talking about people familiar with Kane Womack and talking with people more familiar with South Alabama. I think aggression is going to be a word you're going to see with this team. I think they're going to pressure the quarterback. They're going to want to make the throws quicker. And that's, I've always the first one of the first college coaches I ever knew 25, 26 years ago. He said the best defensive backs you can have is a good pass rush, where those guys have less, obviously less time they have to defend those guys is what he meant. You pressure the ball, you make them get it out there quicker. You don't give the wide receiver time to get into his break or get those legs linked out and get past you. So I think that's kind of going to be familiar there. And again, we're going to say Quay Russaw, but that position, we're expecting a lot out of guys like that.
Yeah, I think 12 is about right because I still think in this defense, you're going to have edges that are leaned on heavily. I think Keanu Coot, in terms of breakout candidates, has a
Yeah.
real possibility to be that kind of guy. Q Robinson is back. Quay Russaw expected to step up. So, I think about Braylon Trice for Washington last year. He was kind of that guy as a wolf type, as an edge, a big edge, though. I mean, Trice was 270 pounds. So those guys are pretty hard to come by. He was a veteran, too, though. He had been in that program for 4 or 5 years.
You're also with the sacks. You're also going to have some pretty aggressive defensive backs. I mean, Dominique coming on a blitz.
Husky
Malachi
position.
as fast as he is, Malachi's shown us, a dozen times how smart he is to get pressure on the quarterback. And I don't think you can sleep on Keon Saab either.
No, they'll be bringing different guys. Yeah.
And those are guys that are quick and smart and, can get to the quarterback. I mean, you get that backside uncovered in a defensive back. We see that basically in every game. You see that corner come flying in and, he's got speed, track speed, legit speed. So it's also going to factor in on the defense.
Yeah, I think those linebackers too. Even your inside guys like Jahad Campbell and Deontay and those guys and the different looks that Womack likes to dial up. He's not always very predictable. And we see it here from JT83 in the comments, who says, I think Roach's coaching acumen will shine with the scheme change. A lot more opportunity for the DLs to make plays in the backfield. Yep. I think we're in agreement with that. It's kind of, as a positional coach, you're sort of at the mercy of the scheme when it comes to statistical impact, right? And as fans and people who cover the sport, sometimes we can fall into that trap of just looking at those positions and say, well, this guy only had 3 tackles. You can go back and look at some of Daron Payne's work at Alabama, and it won't blow you away sometimes.
How about Terrence Cody?
But he absolutely impacted everything that happened with that defense when he was at Alabama. Cody too. Yeah.
Cody's one you look like. I'd tell people, they're like, we want a nose guard. I'm like, when you go look at his stats,
yeah,
Cody is not a guy that jumps out at you, but he was a 2nd round pick. He was really, in a lot of ways, the MVP of that defense because he was literally hogging 3 blockers at time and freeing up some of the best linebackers in the history of college football.
No doubt. And
thank you, Jor. Yes.
Yeah, when you've got
time for Travis's promotion here.
Yes, absolutely, Jor. We appreciate it. If you would hit that thumbs up, we would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, and when you've got a guy like Cody, especially with the way the game was played 15 years ago, in front of a guy like Rolando McClain, yeah, that's going to be a problem. Back in the day, games changed though a little bit in terms of how we're playing it these days. So yeah, thanks, Jor. We appreciate that on the hit the thumbs up. Absolutely. If you would do that, we would certainly express a lot of gratitude for that. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel as of yet, we hope you'll do that. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. And of course, Bama Online. That's where you want to be, is with us on the roundtable, our premium message board. No better place to post up and interact with Alabama fans. And then also so much great information that's going to come your way from Tim Watts and Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings, Charlie Potter, Jimmy Stein, Clint Lamb. Yeah, you want to be with us right there at BOL. So, Tim, let's get into some recruiting talk. Let's get into a little bit of a recruiting reset because I want to ask you about the infrastructure. I'm fascinated by how this has come together for Kalen DeBoer. I think there were very early indications that there was the likelihood of that taking place, especially when we consider some of those who made the actual flight with him from Seattle to Tuscaloosa upon his hiring. But just a reset because Chuck McDonald, elite cornerback, commits to Alabama last weekend. Then you get Big Michael Carroll, the offensive lineman from Pennsylvania, a few days later. He commits to Alabama. One day later, Mal Waldrop commits to Alabama, another impressive offensive line target. So I guess that's where we sit right now. What are we sort of anticipating? We'll have our recruiting show tomorrow, by the way, so we'll get more nuts and boltsy with it. But just an overview of where we're at and where we're heading on the recruiting front.
I mean, I think they've did an A+ job up to this point. I mean, there's still a lot, you got to say this, but there's a lot of recruiting left to go. It's a long way till December 4th and, 50 million different ways. Phone calls, visits, unofficial visits, official visits, everything that's going on. This month's got a couple more weekends in it. I think I'm most impressed with, I think with this staff because they've been able to bring kids on official visits, seal the deal, and have them commit the next week and shut down their other visits. I mean, some of these guys, Keelan Russell was really just starting to blow up. Oregon, Florida, all these schools that were involved pushing for him. Michael Carroll, I think, could have committed to just about, I think he could have called any school and went for a official visit and shown some interest in him. So these were top targets they were able to lock in. So now, I mean, they have visitors coming up this weekend. It's Thursday. I don't think the official visitor weekend's ever set on a Thursday. I mean, last week we saw Ivan Taylor pop up on it on Friday. We'd heard rumors of it, but was confirmed on Friday that he came in for an official visit. Um, and this week you got guys coming in, big name guys. Travis Smith's one of the top wide receivers in the country. Jackson Lloyd, a name we're very familiar with. So they've got a lot of guys coming in. Your punter from California is kind of coming in. The punter who got an offer from out in California, he's coming in. So I think that visitor list is still taking place. But what they've done so far has been pretty impressive to get some of these guys wrapped up. So I think they're just trying to survive these next 2 weekends because you also have unofficial visitors popping up on the regular. I mean, I think something's going on every day in Tuscaloosa between the camps they put on, the unofficial visitors, the official visitors, and a huge 7-on-7 yesterday. They had some of the top talent. Thompson was there. Naeem Offord was there. He's been there, 3 times, 4 or 5 out of the last 8 days he's been in Tuscaloosa. He was with his team there, but I think the staff is, burning on both ends of the candle right now. So I think they're looking for a little bit of a reset theirself. But I would give them an A+ on everything they've done up to this point, and understanding that grade could change.
Is it too early to say Alabama is trending in a very positive direction with Naeem Offord? Would you be a little bit more cautious than to go that far, or do you think maybe that's where this is headed with the 5-star corner?
I would be cautious because he's still committed to Ohio State and he'd seemed pretty firmly committed. But I don't think there's any way you can say he's not trending. Alabama's not trending in the right direction. He came in 2 Tuesdays ago for an unofficial visit. They went well enough to get him in town for an official visit. So, I mean, that's 2 things you weren't even sure that was going to happen. And then, of course, he's with his team. So it's not like an offered visit, but he was in Tuscaloosa again. Spent a lot of time there. The reports are good. The mom is, putting some stuff on social. We understand she likes it a good bit. I think the dad had a good time. And you look at Offord, and again, the coaches and do a great job. And we should talk about more about the brand, the Alabama brand. I mean, Alabama's going to recruit pretty well, anyways. But then you get coaches that know how to recruit. You add them together, and now you've got players that know how to recruit. I mean, you see Ryan Williams, Mbakwe. There's been a lot of like team atmosphere. When a guy commits, you can guarantee that Luke Metz and Duke Johnson and some of those guys are straight in the comments right away saying welcome home, and Casey Poe and players on the team. So there's a lot of unity there. But with Offord, I think you have to be cautious because he's committed. He's got 2 visits coming up. Oregon is an official visit this weekend that's scheduled, and next week is Ohio State. But I mean, you look up and you check the On3 database, and he's been to Alabama more than he's been anywhere else. He's been to Alabama 8 times. He's been to Auburn 7 times, obviously the in-state schools. But I think there's still some recruiting to be done. And, you never know what a parent's thinking. But, like for me, I wouldn't want my kid, if I have to get on a flight to see them, I'm kind of irritated. They better be within a 4 or 5 hour drive. But some parents don't mind the flight. The flight's going to be as short as the drive. Yeah, obviously yours was in Hawaii. So I think it just comes down to what the parents want, as far as their opinion in this whole thing. But really, I think it's going to come down to relationships. And I think the Alabama staff has proven they're really good at building relationships.
And a lot of that comes from recruiting infrastructure, your organization, how you're built, not only as a coaching staff, but as an entire department. And it just feels like this is something Kalen DeBoer has knocked out of the park since we got word that he was going to be the successor to Nick Saban as Alabama head coach. Because even on the flight from Seattle to Tuscaloosa, we saw Courtney Morgan immediately. And just talk about how that's impacted this class already, even the last class, and carrying over after Saban retired and finishing and putting a bow on that. And then, some of the pieces that they were able to meld from a coaching staff perspective and even from a support staff standpoint.
I think it started, and I'm not going to know all their names, but I think it started with Josh Chapman, Denzel Duval, Ashley Kimball. I hear her name a lot. It started with a lot of those guys who never got a lot of credit at Alabama because, it was just Saban's voice. It's the same as the assistants. We're seeing more of those guys now, but a lot of those people did fantastic work locking it in. Freddie Roach and Robert Gillespie, they were doing double duty, trying to keep everybody together in the meantime and give them a chance to meet the new staff. Gillespie did a good job. He kind of he relates well to kids, especially his room. Roach is a guy that's hollering at everybody too. They know each other. He's that friendly type. So that certainly helped. But the people in the back, and then you get Kalen DeBoer, you get Courtney Morgan, and they kind of know like to talk and work it out and put the meetings together fairly quick. And I had that whole thing that, look, there was a lot of there was a lot of chances to mess something up because you had weird contracts where they couldn't go on the road. We had coaches, the staff wasn't put together really quick. You had the Huff. I'm your offensive. I mean, not. I mean, what was his name? The offensive coordinator. I'm thinking of the offensive line coach.
Yeah. Now
I'm
drawing a blank. That's how quickly they come and go.
Old man blank. But you had the offensive coordinator, the offensive line. I'm your offensive coordinator. Now I'm the Seahawks coordinator. You had a lot of things. That took a lot of heat too for that. And I think overall the bumps were rather small at the end of the road.
Ryan Grubb,
dude, is totally missed. Totally.
And
that should be
Scott
an easy.
Huff. Yeah, I mean,
well, I was talking about
that's
Scott Huff.
That's how crazy it is, though, because there's so much anxiety in real time when those guys aren't staying. And then, I mean, I'm getting older, so the memory is starting to.
Well, Huff went straight to my mind. Me and Andrew were talking about the offensive line yesterday.
Yeah.
Or the day before on Tuesday, but I don't think I didn't know Grubb long enough to remember. It's like it was like a blind date.
Never really was at Alabama.
It was still an unbelievable story. The whole drama, is he staying? I'm staying, I'm gone. Friday night wings, you know what I mean? Friday night he's at Buffalo Wild Wings with the Seahawks head coach. But so you got that. There's a lot of chances for further, incidences there to miss something. But I think the old guys coming in, the new guys, Kalen DeBoer bridging them with his new staff, putting everybody together. I think a lot of the people that helped that class, and there's still continuation because it wasn't just recruiting players. You had to keep players on your team. Josh Chapman, those guys knew some of those kids extremely well. Clinton Dick. That's what I'm saying. There's names. That's the four I've heard the most, along with Ashley. But there's probably, another half dozen that played a part in keeping them there. And then Courtney Morgan knows how to lead a recruiting board. And a recruiting staff. And I think Kalen DeBoer, I think people like him. I think they like him. I mean, the guy stood in front of a race car and they compared, they act like he shaved his chest hair to a big A or something. He stood in front of a race car in front of Bryant Denny. I mean, it was, I thought that was odd. So I think Kalen's a guy that they like, and the staff, the recruiting, the coaches, we hear really good things. Christian Robinson, for instance, everybody that talks about Christian Robinson likes him. Kane Womack went in and focused on his inside linebackers, and he got what he wanted pretty quick. Still got, some more guys that are out there and possibilities. But I think all these guys we've heard good things about. And and this is not a knock on the former staff in any way, but Nick Saban, when you got a hammer like Nick Saban, when you got a hammer, you're never out of this. Like people are saying, why didn't the Bama staff like Alford? Well, they did like Alford. He's a hell of a player. Saban hadn't got involved. You can be trailing a big amount in February, and you can be in the lead in March after a few Zoom calls. We've seen that. Saban tended to focus on each class at a time, obviously going through the playoffs and everything like that. But you have a tendency to rely on that hammer. It's like a boxer with a big right hand. He doesn't worry about anything else. I think Saban is that, that Mike Tyson knockout punch, so
Yeah.
things could get lax waiting on boss to step in.
Yeah, the script A and Nick Saban. That wasn't all that difficult to recruit behind over the last 16 plus years or so at Alabama. Hey, speaking of a program that doesn't seem to be having a lot of problem attracting top talent these days, Alabama men's basketball. You kind of know what your roster is going to look like at this point with Mark Sears and Stevenson coming back. You're seeing some of the summer work. They jump right into it. You got any early impressions, or what you're hearing, Tim, that sort of lines up with all of this excitement, understandable excitement, where the next season is concerned?
Yes. I also want to remind you guys to like and subscribe. We got that little thing at the bottom running down to remind you, but the thumbs up's huge for us. We're trying to get to 10K. You guys and gals, y'all have been fantastic with this site. It's growing. Tomorrow's show, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings will jump in. We do shows with all of our guys. We've actually never thought this would be like me and Travis or even Potter's MO to be on YouTube, but we love it. I have a good time chopping it up. It's better than just the podcast where me and Travis did them. We didn't really see each other. So this is good. It's always a little comforting to see that Hawaiian jersey hanging up.
Well, yeah.
The Reier Hall. Savannah made the Reier Hall of Fame. So we're like, it brings me peace. But yeah, the Sun, look, this team, it's going to be good. The thing about it is, the competition, the defense is going to be improved. I'm 1,000% convinced of that because I believe Nate Oates is able to say, if you don't play defense, you don't give me max effort, you're not playing. And if you're going to have to compete. I mean, the guard play alone, Phelan is a guy I think you really have to watch out for. He's a little bit more mature. I think that people expected, seeing him in that, all that happened pretty quick with him with his recruitment. I mean, he's committed to Kansas. He's kind of an afterthought. He committed to Bama. Youngblood is an interesting guy. He's got maybe the second pure stroke on the team compared to Trelly. He also looks like he could be a heck of a NFL running back. He's got a muscular build with him. So you got the big guys in there, that are going to compete. I think, Reed's going to be a glue guy. I don't know if people are going to find him sexy and all that stuff, but I think NBA executives and college coaches love him because he does all the little things you want to. I'm not saying he plays or looks like Herb, but he does Herb things. We saw that last night with Drew Holiday in the NBA championship. That's Herb type things where you get 2 steals, you take a charge, you have 3 assists, you do all the little things that you do in a game that the coaches need that don't really fill the stat sheets that we're used to watching. But Reed, another thing I've noticed about him, he'll box you out. You've heard taking him to the bus. He will box your ass out to the bus. He is old school 19. He's like the coaches I had. Put your rear on him, elbows up. We were driving people out to the parking lot. He's that old school kind of guy. He's going to do all that thing. And Sherrell's a guy. I think he's a guy. If he's patient, I think he could end up in the lottery at some point. I think he's got that potential. A big guy's shot's going to fall. It's going to get a little bit better. But, in Aiden Holloway, there's no doubt he doesn't have talent. It's just a loaded roster. I mean, it's a loaded roster. When they scrimmage, and they're still not all together. I know that Mo Diabate, I think, is playing with the Ivory Coast. Reed just got back from playing with the national team, but he is back at practice. Grant's still just working on the side baskets on his shot. He's not 100% practice, and neither is Trelly. But when they get all these guys back and healthy, I think their scrimmages are going to be better in some of the games that they play. Well, maybe not because Nate's put together. I'm convinced of this. If Dan Hurley had taken the Lakers job, I think Nate Oates would have tried to play him. I think that with that connection, because he is literally, I mean, remember when we started with this? St. John's Madison Square Garden, people were excited, but then it got to the point like it's not worth it. I got 10 other games better. That's how crazy this schedule is. Houston, North Carolina. What do you think about North Carolina?
I
Did you
think
look
I
at?
think that's the game Alabama fans wanted last year when the ACC SEC challenge, and it was Clemson in Tuscaloosa, which hey, turned out Clemson ended up being a pretty damn big game twice last
Yeah,
season. And
yeah, very
Clemson
good
won in
team.
Tuscaloosa, but in terms of anticipated matchups and marquee type of matchups, I mean Alabama at North Carolina is going to be,
So is this
right at the top
officially
of
a
the list.
rivalry? Is this a rivalry at this point? I mean,
I
I'm
think we're
3 times
getting there because of not
crazy.
just on the court. They've played a couple times the last few seasons. Alabama's won both those games, but then Stevenson and the
Big
recruiting angles that have come
Cliff.
into play.
Yeah, Clifford. He was a
Yeah.
guy North Carolina was involved with.
Omori was
I
in that.
personally
Yeah.
haven't been, when I covered AAU, I went into Cameron and I didn't realize how small it was. Those people are standing on your toes
Yeah.
at the games. Great fan base. It's crazy when I went to Duke. I had to
It's going
ask
to be
4.
like Auburn playing at Auburn when Auburn goes to Duke in terms of the
Yeah.
arena.
What was crazy for me when I was at Duke, and they had that tournament of champions, and they had an NC State Duke in North Carolina, so you're bouncing around. When I went to Duke, this has never happened anywhere in the world. We couldn't find Duke. It's kind of hidden. It's kind of off. It's kind of down a
They
little,
don't want you to find it, Tim, in case you
dude.
haven't
I had
noticed.
to ask 4 students. I had to ask 4 students. I mean,
Duke
one's
doesn't
like,
want you to find Duke.
I'm telling you, the second guy looked at me like I was looking for someone named Cameron. He's like, "Cameron, I don't know somebody named Indoor Stadium." You know what I mean? I was like, it was amazing they didn't know because the academics are so big, but it's so small. I would have liked to see Bama at Duke. Um, that would have been a marquee game, but I'll take North Carolina and
Yeah.
Auburn at Duke. I'm there for
Gonna
it.
be
That's going to
fun.
be
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I like those games, no doubt about it. So there you go. Some summer hoops impressions from Tim Watts. And with that, Tim, let's head into that roundtable mailbag. Ready to do that. Excited about that. Always appreciate the folks that participate in the mailbag, help us out. Good stuff as always. Our guy Tide Hashira, he's become kind of a superstar of the
He
mailbag.
is. He's a
Tim,
hero.
he says, time to make my weekly appearance, and we appreciate that, TH. Do you guys remember recruits coming to help bring in other recruits during the Saban era like Alabama does now? Assistance from recruits on the recruiting trail. Tim, I mean, I remember some guys being pretty outgoing, but what do you think about this?
I think Saban wasn't always for that, especially early, because if they flip, you know what I mean? If they flip, they've been recruiting them to it. They'll be recruiting them to another school or dogging them. So I don't remember the early Bama staffs, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, Bo Davis, Lance Thompson. I don't remember that being encouraged. I think with some guys, you had to do it on their own naturally. I'm not sure this staff's encouraging it. I don't know. I don't think they're discouraging it, but I think they could just be these guys are that close. And I do think with Saban, it was different. I don't really remember much of FaceTime or Instagram Live and all that. Maybe to communicate seemed a little bit different than it does now. So maybe it's just the day and the easiness of DMing somebody, getting their number, talking to them, and all like that. But I think the Ryan has really, you know, put the cherry on top of how important it is with some of these recruits or the effort they're going to give. And again, I'm always going to give Jalen Mbakwe a shout out because while Ryan was recruiting everybody, Jalen was recruiting Ryan. So you can't tell me Jalen, who's a little bit more quiet. And I think he's quiet socially, and his recruitment side was quiet. I don't think he's quiet when he's recruiting these guys. He also is a big help.
Bama man for JC in the roundtable mailbag says, thinking about Bama possibly playing an away playoff on campus game in mid December has me thinking of playing up north, for example, Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, and the possibility of snow. With that, what is the coldest sporting event you've ever attended? Has Alabama ever played in snow before? I can't recall in Alabama
I don't recall. The coldest game I've ever been to, we made the mistake. The kids wanted to go to the Papa John's Bowl, Connecticut and South Carolina.
And
Dude, I
UConn
am
brought the weather, huh?
first when I was walking in, a lady was like, "They need to fix this up if they want to have us playing at a major bowl." And I was like, "This is not a major bowl. It is 32 degrees." They also didn't have Papa John's pizza. They did not have it till the middle of the second quarter, it feels like. It certainly wasn't there the first quarter because the kids kept asking for it. It was icicle, like holy crap cold. Feel the coldness of the seat through the blanket. And then the sun started to go down, and I was like, we're gone. I didn't even think about the sun going down. So that was my coolest experience, and it was miserable. Yeah, it was miserable. It was one of the most miserable experiences and I thought I was prepared for it, but I was not. It was a pretty good game, though, if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been
I
a
went
while.
to I took Evan, our son, to the AFC Championship game. I think it was 2004-ish or so, 2003, 2004 in Pittsburgh against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. That was cold. Evan got nachos, and I want to say before he could finish them, the bottom of
Yeah.
the cheese was already starting to pretty much solid up. Also, I've done a Packers game at Lambeau
No.
in December. That was single digits by the end of the game, but I still think Pittsburgh for that AFC Championship game was the coldest Bama game. I mean, you'll hear a lot of people tell you the 98 Music City Bowl in Nashville, the first Music City Bowl, Alabama got hammered by Virginia Tech in that game. They'll say that was just brutal in Nashville. The 92 SEC championship game. That was maybe the most unexpected cold weather that I encountered at an Alabama game. I just remember going to that game. I know I was young and stupid, but I just went to that game not expecting the conditions that we ended up getting there at Old Legion Field, the old gray lady in Birmingham. So there's some offerings for you from Tim and myself. Rolling Tide 32 in the roundtable mailbag. Tim, he wants to know, where does Alabama stand for Ty Haywood, Dijon Lee, and Ivan Taylor, offensive tackle, corner, safety?
Ivan's supposed to go to Notre Dame. He was the one that popped up last week from safety from Florida. Really good football player. He actually he was 18, 19 pounds heavier than he was in the database. We got an updated size on him. I think Alabama's in it for him. He's going to Notre Dame. He's supposed to go to Michigan the next week, I think. I'm not sure how open he is. They've been very quiet, leading up to the visit. We're focused on Notre Dame. And obviously they weren't locked in. They took other visits. So Alabama's in it. I think they've done a pretty good job there of staying in it. Colin Hitchler, we found out after the fact, had been talking to Ivan pretty consistently. Dijon's getting to his visit stage. He's been a guy. When Alabama first got here, some of the first names we heard were Abdul Sanders, Jackson Lloyd, Dijon Lee, Josiah Sharma. These were guys connected to the new Alabama coaches who'd been at Washington. So Dijon's in there. Feel like Bama's in good shape at this stage. Official visits coming up, so you don't know. Ty Haywood's been interesting. I mean, his trip to Alabama, been offensive tackle. He was very much impressed, along with his mom on that visit. Still some of these guys have 3 or 4 visits. It could change pretty quick, so we're kind of watching, follow the visit, so to speak. But I think Alabama's battling for all 3 of them.
There you go. There's the update from Tim Watts, and we appreciate the question. Rolling Tide 32. Then we get into the jokes portion. They've got jokes portion of the roundtable mailbag. Matt and Tim
they often
asking,
do.
does DeBoer plan to bring back the fax machine girls for signing day? No, M10. I'm going to guess that one's a thing of the past. AE Motivates asks, will the team wear houndstooth pants this season? Tim, we are officially in the offseason when we get into the recruiting, the uniform debates. I don't think houndstooth pants are on the horizon.
I give both of those questions the same odds of happening. I'd say that they are not very likely.
Dean Wormer said it best in Animal House: 0.0. That was Blatarski's GPA
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
Hampton 18 here in the roundtable mailbag asks, what has surprised you most about DeBoer and his staff thus far? This can be something you've heard about recruiting or related to how they manage day-to-day coaching of the team and operations. They've exceeded every expectation I've had. Enjoy listening, fellas, and roll tide. Thank you, Hampton 18. We appreciate that. So,
We
if there's
do
a
indeed.
surprise element to this, and maybe we covered some of that with the recruiting infrastructure that we hit on the earlier segment, what would it be for you, Tim?
I'm not surprised by anything. I think that, we took the let's wait and see approach because there was when Kalen DeBoer was first named. Now, before he was hired as coach, there's a lot of people unhappy. I mean, there was a lot of people questioning it. I don't think it was because they knew who Kalen DeBoer was. I think it was because they didn't know who Kalen DeBoer was. So when you dug into him, and when you look at a guy that's won everywhere he's been, it's hard to argue with him. He had a huge offer to stay at Washington. This isn't a guy that was running to get out of somewhere. I mean, he wanted to be at Alabama. And then you started looking a little bit deeper into Courtney Morgan because you had a lot of questions. I mean, let's be honest. How many people knew a lot about this staff? Anybody know Mo Linquish, Colin Hitchler? Most of these guys you had to research, right? Even
Yeah.
Shep, who has a great reputation as a wide receiver coach. A lot of these guys. Now, I was familiar with Christian Robinson. He played at Georgia, recruited over there. Freddie Roach, somebody's from Alabama. Robert Gillespie, who had been on that staff. But we had to do the research stage. So I wasn't surprised by anything. I do think they've hit on all cylinders, though. And I think that's hard to do. To hit on everything, and they won't get everybody they want. That's absolutely not happening. But the question is, will they get enough of what they need? And I think that's where they're at. And I think they did a good job of it. Again, A+ as of June 13th.
Andrew Bone, he checked into the roundtable mailbag, Tim.
This clown.
He couldn't help himself.
We appreciate
He
the question, Andrew.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. We talked about this maybe a little bit last week, but your favorite meal in the recent trip over to Spain, Tim, what would that have been?
We went to a place called is Kaya
Hmm.
Japanese cuisine in Majorca. I knew it was big time when the wife said, "Hey, we gotta put a credit card down because if we cancel, they charge us."
Yeah,
"That's the only one." I was like, "That was great." I
that's
mean,
what
you
the
had
ballers do. Yeah.
everything's, it's easy. Paella is extremely, extremely good. Andrew, in fact, I think he wanted to lead into this. He made paella or went to eat paella like the second day after I showed him. I had it. It reminded him how much he liked it, so he went. But I mean, it's food. I mean, it's Spain. I mean, we had great tacos in Madrid. It's like going to New York. You
Yeah, I
got
mean,
50 things. You can get a $3 piece of pizza. It's your favorite meal in some of these cities.
yeah, that sounds good to me. Andrew wants to know what is my favorite Tyler Childers song. Recently saw Tyler. I've seen him before. I saw him in Birmingham with Sturgill Simpson right before the COVID hit back in 2020, and then I saw him again here recently opening for the Rolling Stones down in Orlando. My favorite Tyler Childers song. I like the bangers. House Fire to me is a banger. I like Nose on the Ground, Grindstone. I know a lot of people like All Yorin and Feathered Indians. Those are great. I mean, you could take your pick, but I would probably White House Road would be up there too, but probably House Fire. That's one I can kind of listen to anytime. Tuscaloosa checking in. This is just Tuscaloosa, not 123 or 26. Tuscaloosa asks if they lowered the goal in women's basketball. I love how he sticks with the bit, Tim. You gotta respect
I
it.
think he believes it. I don't
Would
know if it's
other
that much.
women have the opportunity in basketball to be as popular as Caitlin Clark? We haven't talked about this Caitlin Clark thing, man.
I mean, the whole
Um,
thing. Let me tell you first. One of my favorite things in the world are the WNBA haters on social. And what they do is they'll catch a fast break and they'll say Angel Reese with a WNBA dunk, and she shoots a layup. They do it like every day. They're like the hate. I mean, I know it's a joke. Nobody said the WNBA was throwing alley oops, but it's like they're consistent with it. But yeah, the attendance I don't know. That Angel Reese stuff's kind of, I mean, it does reek of jealousy. I don't want to get in the middle of Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark. I don't mind the veterans throwing her
Yeah.
around a little. I
Yeah.
would. I
Well,
think that's
Diana Taurasi's, like in her 40s, and she said back before the season that this was what was going to happen to Caitlin Clark. And everything else we've tried to make out of the situation culturally and everything else, it really goes back to what Diana Taurasi said, the former UConn star, who is
I
a
don't think it's
legend
that.
in women's basketball. She
I,
said it's going to be rough. And
you don't want to get
so,
showed up by Caitlin Clark because everybody's watching her. So if she, if she makes you stumble, she puts you down. I mean, it's on you. And also, I mean, those are grown. Well, not to say Caitlin Clark, but those are grown women,
yeah,
seasoned grown women.
yeah,
And when you see like and that's a good basketball player that gave her the little cheap shot nudge and knocked her down, but
Kennedy
they
Carter.
it's
Yeah.
kind of odd. I think she is responsible for the vast majority of this popularity. Not that other people didn't play it, but I think she put a lot of eyes on it.
Look at, I mean,
And at this,
they're selling out 15, 17,000 seat arenas right
I mean,
now.
I think if she retired, I think we'd see I think we would see if she said today I'm done. I think we'd see the impact
Oh, yeah.
of it. So, and I just think there's a little. It's weird because you're kind of like jealous of the person that got you in the
It's
first
got you
class
on
seats.
charter flights now instead of
And I get why they
commercial.
don't want to give all the credit to Caitlin Clark. If I'm a veteran in that league,
Yeah.
I've been a 5-time WNBA player and all that stuff, and I'm having to get credit from a
Yeah.
22, rookie from Iowa. I'd be irritated because it never came my way to
Well,
begin
what
with.
happens is with the pettiness and everything, the that gets lost. Uh it's not that what I think some of the players are hearing that isn't actually what's being said is that Caitlin Clark is the best player right now in
Yeah,
the
that
world or in the
I don't
WNBA. That's
I
not
don't
what
think that's
anybody's saying.
because
What
that's
they're
not
saying
true.
is she is clearly the most marketable and the one who's lifting all boats in terms of salaries and marketability and popularity. No one's saying you're not a better player right now, but I think that's what gets heard,
Look, I think
gets
like
confused.
when I went to high school, and I know you can't do this anymore. There was a certain amount of hazing when I was a freshman. There was a certain amount of the same thing that they go through, and hazing was loose. This was not some of the brutal hazing. I mean, got my leg taped once completely, pulled it off, hair came off, duct taped, little things like that tied to the goalpost stuff you actually used to see rookies in the NFL do. I think there's a little bit of this, but I do think all that will settle down. I don't think it will continue. I think they'll either respect her or like her or hate her and respect her, but I think it'll change. But I don't watch the WNBA. I watched a little bit of it during the playoffs or the tournament, but it's not something I can really get into.
Yeah, I watch a lot of women's college basketball. Obviously, our
Hmm.
background with it and
Sure.
everything, but I enjoy it. I enjoy SEC women's basketball. I think it's really good. I don't enjoy the WNBA as much. I don't really know why, but when it's college basketball season, I love that I get the men's games and then in between those, I get the women's games. I watch all of it. So, Mask Up Daytona here in the comments, Tim. He wants to know, can you dunk?
No, but I can hit a
But
layup.
hey, he asked me to. Yeah,
I
I can
cannot
dunk a
dunk, but
donut. I can dunk a donut like a
the thing
champ.
that's crazy to me sometimes with the girls' game is how do they miss the layups, the bunnies, and hit from 30 feet? I mean, I'm sure there's a rational reason. Um, I'm not sure there is a rational reason, actually. I don't know why
Well, it's all about the 3-point shot. I mean,
but he should hit a layup. I
I
mean,
know.
you
Well,
should be
I
able,
don't
we could
see,
take
but
her.
you sound like you see a bunch of missed layups in the women's
I
game, and I
see you.
don't
I
because
see them more.
I don't know how women's teams are scoring in the 90s like they do if they're missing layups. I mean, if
I'm
they're missing
talking
all these
college
layups,
basketball girls.
shouldn't the
That's
games be like 44, 42 or something? They're not.
no, because they get their own rebound.
Well,
I mean,
they're
I
not. I
saw
don't
a
think they're
whole
missing all
clip.
these layups.
I
I
think
don't
they're
think we're seeing the
missing,
same
well, they're
thing.
not missing all, but they're missing more than your average high school basketball team.
Maybe. I don't know. I watch a
I don't
lot more
watch
than you do
enough.
though.
I'm
You
just,
just said you
the
don't
thing I
watch it. You just said you don't
mm,
watch it. I watched it.
I'll bet you the next college basketball game that's on, whoever
All
it
right.
is televised, they miss over under 7
They
missed
might.
shots.
They
Well,
might. You might be right.
look what you did, Mask Up Daytona. You got us at odds.
No, I just, I mean, people have already got their mindsets on stuff like that. And a lot of it is, like I said, I've been watching girls and women's basketball for the last 8 years. You or anyone else I talk to pretty much can't have that conversation with me. That's all I'm saying.
I
That's all
watched
I'm saying.
South Carolina, and they have a
That's fine.
freshman who I
Yep.
think's the best in the country. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the bucket. She's got real
Yeah, she
game.
she missed 3 in 1 game, which shocked me. Now
Yeah.
I think she's gonna be different.
Well, she might be, but let's keep it moving. What do we got next here? Caleb Muse here in the roundtable mailbag says Bama landing Jackson Lloyd, Douglas, you two, and either or DeBose, Haywood. Out of those four, which two or three would you guys say Bama has the advantage for? Caleb wanting to know Jackson Lloyd, you two, DeBose, and Haywood. If there's two or three of those guys, Tim, that Alabama is maybe in pretty good shape with, who would they be?
I mean, they're battling it's, for all of them. We touched on especially these offensive linemen a lot the last 2 weeks with the commitments coming and everything. I think they're battling Ohio State for Jackson Lloyd. He's coming to Bama this week. Ohio State made a good impression. Douglas Utu's kind of interesting because we haven't heard a lot about him. I think his visit went well. But he's quiet. I mean, even his junior highlight tape's not public. So I was trying to, look and scout him out the other day and couldn't find him. So it's been kind of quiet. Alabama's definitely in the mix there, but until we know a little bit more. And a lot of these guys still have their visits coming up. I mean, O2, he I'm looking him up now. I mean, well, he's got a weird visit list. Bama was his last one. So I think that like with him, he's just a quiet guy we don't know a lot about, but I think they did a good job with him. I think there's some things to work out there that Alabama can land. And with DeBose, LSU, they're battling with LSU. Haywood had a great visit. We've touched on this a few times, but taking other official visits. So, I mean, there's still 2 official visitor weekends. I think you'll see guys. I mean, there's still some recruiting to be done. With those guys, I think it's best to say they're in it. They're in it. They're battling there because those are some big time guys you're looking at too. I mean, we got top 30 guy. You got and again, I want to see a little bit more of Utu because some of his live footage I saw, he looks like a power grader on the interior. But I mean, those are 4 really good targets.
And again, we're going to have our recruiting show tomorrow with Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings and this guy, Tim Watts. So you're absolutely going to want to tune in tomorrow morning live for that. Right here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Hit a like for us too, if you don't mind. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube channel for BOL. In the roundtable mailbag original, the post I put up for the mailbag this week, I asked, what's a non-negotiable side when you have a seafood dinner? And our guy Tex Tider here says, where's it at? He says next week the seafood side dish will be conch fritters at every restaurant in Turks. Yeah, he's going down to the islands. How about that, Tim? Conch fritters. Are you a fritter guy?
I think they're all right.
Yeah.
We had that, I feel like, in the Cayman Islands that we had a lot of conch, a ton
Yeah.
of conch.
Yeah.
And it was good. I don't remember if it was fritters. I don't remember. I know I have fritters because I hear the word. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it is exactly.
Yeah,
Have to look.
conch fritters. Conch to me just doesn't do anything for me. I know people that love it, and in a fritter form, yeah, I could do, because a fritter is like a hush puppy, right?
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
looking
you
in.
could
Yeah,
just you could
very
put just
familiar.
about anything in a hush puppy, and I'm gonna eat it. Do you have, like, for a seafood dinner, Tim? Do you have a side that you want with pretty much every one of those, or does it even matter?
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
there for just the seafood. I mean, I don't mind. I tell you what was really good. People laugh, but they had those cheese biscuits at Red Lobsters. I haven't been to a Red Lobster. You know what I'm talking about? They
Oh
have,
man, I ate so many of those one night I
dude.
couldn't sleep. Like
Dude, I was like,
it
"Y'all
kept me
gotta
up.
bring these
That
after you
garlic,
bring my
yeah,
meal."
the
Yes, it was
garlic in it. Oh
I haven't
god,
been to one in probably 7 or 8 years, but they had that, was really good. I mean, I like a Captain D's Hush Puppy, so I guess it just depends. That's not fast food seafood. When I'm in a real seafood place, I'm just there for the whatever the seafood is, you know what I mean?
Mascot
Asparagus,
Daytona says asparagus. Yeah, with some fish dishes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Tilapia, it's really good grilled with tilapia, with grilled tilapia.
I had a surf and turf sushi roll last night that was
Oh, nice.
wagyu with
Oh, man.
tempura shrimp, and it had
Nice.
asparagus in the roll. That was really good. You know, for the here's Jamie. I think Jamie, he's my people because he says
Yes. He
coleslaw
gets
or
it.
hush puppies or baked beans. For me, it's coleslaw. If I go to a seafood restaurant and your coleslaw isn't good, it almost negates that your seafood's good. And I'm with you. I'm there for the seafood. I'm there for the
Yeah.
fish or the shrimp or whatever.
Those are
But
good,
man,
though.
I think coleslaw says something about your character if you're one of those places and you don't get that right. If the coleslaw isn't really cold and has the crunch to it, it's tough for me to take
You can
you.
mess up coleslaw. You
People do
absolute
it.
potato
People,
salad too, you can mess
why,
it up.
why mayonnaise? Anything with
Mhm.
mayonnaise, you can mess up.
Yeah,
You know,
you can't really miss on a good baked bean. Meat, my wife
I'm
makes a
not.
good one.
I'm
She
not
got from
rich,
our friend
mascot. Yeah, it was very thinly sliced wagyu. Trust
we
me,
tried Wagyu at that same,
it was good, man.
that sushi place we tried, it's expensive. We didn't
Yeah,
try a lot of
it
it.
was it was a little steep for the roll, but man, that was a good roll last night. Josh Davis, 96 here in the roundtable mailbag, Tim, asks, so are we officially out as in Alabama for Justice Terry, the big defensive lineman from Georgia?
I just think there's a recruiting left to be done. I mean, most of what we see is, Georgia, USC. I think he's going to, Florida State this weekend, one of the Florida schools. I think it's Florida State tomorrow. Probably, but I mean, I think that one's going to be, pretty big battle. NIL is probably going to play a factor. Committed, looking around at the same time. Georgia's not going to let that guy go easy. Obviously Georgia's. I mean, not that USC is, but Georgia's the home team. So that's going to play a factor. And I think there's a lot of recruiting left to be done, decisions to make with him. And the thing to watch with anybody, are they taking an official visit? That's what we're watching for. If they're not, then you're pretty much out for them.
TJ2X, as we wrap up the roundtable mailbag here, asks, on third and longs, do you think Alabama will swap out the bandits frequently and go to a Saban style two outside linebacker type pass rush? Uh, he thinks it makes sense. Yeah, Tim, I think if it's third and long, you're going to have two edge types on the field. I don't care if people get caught up in 3-4, 4-2-5, all these things. It's situational defense these days. And if you've got somebody in third and 12 and you can get two edge types on the field together, you're going to have at least two. I mean, with Saban, we'd see them get three sometimes on the field together.
Yeah, I agree. You want to have that quarterback get the ball out of there. There's nothing worse than the three-man pass rush, in my opinion, at any level of football. Receivers are going to work their way open. Fourth and 31 kind of agrees with me. You can work, you get enough time, you can work, I mean, any kind of pass rush, and, you're not able to find him. I mean, you're having to make a much quicker decision. I just think it's better to get that ball out of the quarterback's hand, and that's how you would do it with the edge rushers. You don't really want
Yeah.
to bring a safety in that situation, because if he does beat you over the top, it's going to be, if he takes the top off, you're really going to have some problems out there.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a couple wolf types out there. I guess they're going to be called moving forward to go along with maybe a bandit and then a defensive tackle that's got some ability to maybe push the pocket, from the inside, that sort of combination. And, I think you'll see those wolf outside linebackers. Sometimes they'll show pass rush drop, and then you bring a husky or a safety, different looks, kind of an assortment when it comes to pass rush situations. Well, there you go, Tim. That's the roundtable mailbag for this week. And it looks like we're pretty much a wrap on this Thursday. Still so much to look at, so much to consider, especially on the recruiting front. Tim Watts Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, our guys at BamaOnLine.com. It's literally minute to minute right now, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's every day someone popping up. Again, yesterday was on campus with his team at Parker, 2028, I think he is. I can't do the math on Trent Seaborn, the quarterback from Thompson. He was there. So it was more, it wasn't really like coming to, it wasn't an individual trip to come see, but you're there with your team and, those guys walk around and, see the campus and meet with people and all that kind of stuff. They probably have friends on there. I mean, I know Seaborn will know, Offord will know some friends. They could have came out and watched them. So it's never bad having guys on campus. And then again, you have the visitors weekend this weekend. You got 2 left. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, Tennessee, I found out they're having like 25 official visitors this weekend. Like 25. That's an amazing amount of kids to try to rodeo and push into one little one event, one meal. I mean, you're having to book the food hall to get everybody, in there. So,
Yeah,
lot
the
of
numbers are astronomical. If you
yeah.
kind of understood what the recruiting budget has to be for a program like Alabama, Tim, it's they're not doing sliders and chicken wings either at a
I
lot of this
just
stuff.
wonder the time in hosting.
Yeah.
Like I've been wondering with, everything Kalen DeBoer and his staff is doing, hosting these 10 to 12 guys
Yeah.
and giving them I mean, you got 25 people there. You're
It's an
not
itinerary.
if you
Yeah,
have
and it's
25 official visitors, you don't have 25 people to get happy. You got like
100.
75 minimum.
Yep.
You don't want somebody's 13-year-old sister mad because they wouldn't let her do something. You
And
got a lot of
yeah,
hands to shake.
you're absolutely right. You're not just recruiting those 20 visitors because
No,
they're going to
not
have 3 or 4 with them, and the same effort and attention to detail has to go into everybody, or you could have a
and
you could
that's
have
what we
a
talked
problem.
about with Kalen DeBoer's staff when they were going through their first spring. It was their very first spring. They had never really seen these guys other than film. They were seeing them live. They probably had to put name tags on to know who the players were to some degree. So there's a high probability you could miss a handshake. You could miss a high five because say you're a DB coach and you're walking over to bump so and so's dad's hand and your safety leaks and gets beat and you just instantly go to what are you doing mode and forget that bump. That could be seen as a slight. So they did a good job of that. And we've seen that over the history. That's why Saban didn't like a lot of official visitors on game week, on the game weekend, because he wanted to focus on the game. And even after the game, you have so many responsibilities. So you got 20 people in that locker room after the game. That's not for an old school guy like Nick Saban. That's less than ideal.
It's been ideal to hang out with Tim Watts once again on a Thursday. It's been fun as always. Hopefully informative to boot. We did our best, Tim. I mean, we try to
We did
bring
our
it when we're on
best.
here.
That's all we
And we'll
can
do it
do.
again tomorrow morning with the recruiting preview, the
Yeah.
official visitor preview for this week. That will be a lot of fun as well with Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings. So you will absolutely want to tune in for that. And a great way to know when we're on is to turn on those notifications after you subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like if you don't mind. Turn on those notifications again. You'll get all this stuff as it drops. Tim, fun as always. Look forward to hanging out again tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Andrew Joseph, Andrew Bone will be joining us, and Joseph Hastings will be dropping in. We'll get the latest, hopefully a little bit updated visitors list. See if we got anybody sneaking in the morning. I think Travis will be live from the airport, right?
Yeah, I'm going on a visit, but yeah,
They're going to think
we'll make it
they're
work.
going they're going to think you're homeless. You're
Well,
only you're only in a house like 1 out of 3 shows.
I
The
know
Panera was the best one though.
the
That was my
Panera.
funnest.
Yeah, Panera was
Yeah,
good, but
yeah, that
we'll
was
make it
fun.
happen. We got to
We'll
make
do
it
it on the
happen.
fly.
We'll do it on the fly, almost literally. But for Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanking you once again for joining us right here on the YouTube home for BOL. Be sure to hang out with us. Head right on over. You probably got it open in the browser right now. The roundtable at BamaOnLine.com. You need to do that most definitely. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanks again. Until next time, so long, everybody.